Josh Giddey comes in at 55. I haven't been able to watch too much of him thus far, but he's about 6'8", can pass it, put up big numbers in the U17 championships in 2019. He's definitely going to be the main reason I watched the NBL this year. Chris Duarte out of Oregon is one of the older prospects in this class as he turns 24 this year. Regardless, he's been lighting it up so far. I've yet to see him play in more than 2 games this season, but from what I've seen, he's got easy top 40 potential. He's a really good defender, shooting 55% from the field and 46% from 3, and 87% from the line. He's an intriguing wing prospect. Now, I already know some of you are incensed by the fact that I have Luka Garza back here. I just don't think there's much room in the league for a back-to-the-basket big who can't defend on the perimeter. He's improved as a shooter, which is a major plus, and actually makes him draftable in my opinion, but I'm just not a fan of his archetype of player in the modern NBA. On the contrary, guys like Enes Kanter, Ivica Zubac, and Jonas Valanciunas do exist, even though they're still more mobile and athletic than he is. I really enjoy Jason Preston out of Ohio. He's a gifted passer and has a knack for scoring the ball as well. And from a statistical perspective, if you're putting up 19, 6, and 7 on 58% from the field and 48% from deep, it's going to be tough to ignore. There was a lot of initial buzz around him just because of his story, but that seemed to cool off. I still think he has nice potential and we'll be watching him throughout the year. Rounding off this first section, we have Davion Mitchell, Joel Ayayi, Sandro Mamukelashvili, Earl Timberlake, and Delano Banton. All these guys have serious top 40 potential. Differentiating prospects through 6 to 12 games in this section of the draft is super tough. At 44, we have Kessler Edwards out of Pepperdine. He's a versatile player and fits the bill as a 3-and-D combo forward who can pass it and affect the game in multiple ways. Scottie Lewis is at 43. He's been frustrating over the last couple games, and I'm still not sure he's ready to be considered in that late first round area just yet. Charles Bassey is at 41. Bassey has had a winding road to get to this point. Health willing, I think he'll get pretty close to that first round projection he had coming in out of high school. Ron Harper Jr. and Bones Hyland are some of my favorite guys in this draft. Bones is going to be one of the tougher players for me to rank, but right now this feels a bit more appropriate than in the 20s. DJ Stewart is headed in the right direction. After a rough patch of games, he settled in offensively while still bringing the effort and energy, especially on the glass, each night. Is Aaron Henry. If he keeps shooting the ball the way he has of late, he might just end up in the first round. He's a rugged defender, good passer, high IQ. He just knows how to play to keep it short. Alperen Sengun is destroying the Turkish Super League at just 18. He's a talented big who can score out of the pick and roll just as well as he can on post-ups. He can't shoot it just yet, but I'd buy stock in the jumper as he's got good touch and shoots 82% from the line. Like with most of these international players, I need to see more from him, but he may just be the next international guy to enter first round consideration. Mr. Duke, with no relation to the Blue Devils or the White Devil, the one out of Providence, has looked the part of an NBA guard so far this year. He's got great size, can play on or off the ball, scores at a high clip, and is an active defender. He's a player who will be in the mix for the first round. Starting off this section, we have another new entrant to the board, and that is Franz Wagner. I got the chance to catch up on several Michigan games, and boy did Mo's little brother jump off the screen. He may not be Michigan's best player just yet, but I think he's pretty easily their best pro prospect. He's got tons of versatility as a 6'9" wing on both ends of the floor, someone who I think will likely be in the first round. Obviously, we won't get a true gauge on Deshaun Nix until we get to see him perform in the G League. This ranking is completely based on his performance in high school and the little recent information we've got about him. There's a wide range for him to move up or down as we get further along in the process. Terrence Clarke has left more to be desired this season, though he still has had his moments. I was high on him coming in, and once he returns from injury, I think he has a chance to get back into that top 25 consideration that his talent warrants. Ayo Dosunmu has settled in nicely as a mid to late first round pick to me. The shooting improvements are real, and he's managed to figure out how to impact games even when things aren't going well early. I've been a big fan of his for a few years, and he's improved enough to make me confident in putting him in this spot. You can't name many players who have been better than Jared Butler this season. He's made significant improvements as a passer, he's more efficient, and just looks more comfortable, even coming off of a year where I had him as a top 40 guy. He's pretty much solidified in the first round. He's a creative and crafty ball handler with a high IQ, probably ends up higher when the air is cleared from the inconsistent one-and-done prospects. I love watching Marcus Bagley shoot the ball. He can play the 3 of the 4, projects well as a shooter in a variety of settings. I still like him despite the growing pains he and this Arizona State team have been going through lately. BJ Boston is this year's most frustrating prospect. Things looked like they were trending upwards after that Florida game, but then he followed it up with another poor performance at Alabama. I think he's probably still a first round prospect, but the time to wait on him to get it together is quickly running out. Roko Prkačin has a really good chance of being the best international prospect in this class. I've been able to watch a bit more of him lately, and I think he's a definite first round prospect. He's got a pretty well-rounded game. His shot is going to decide a lot of his future, but if he can stay consistent there, he could sneak into the lottery. Day'Ron Sharpe has been getting a ton of buzz after going for 25-9 against Notre Dame and more consistently playing over 25 minutes a game. I'm not quite ready to put him in contention for the lottery, but he's certainly one of the premier bigs in this class. And the moment you've all been waiting for, Sharife Cooper is at 21. Maybe his play comes down to earth, but the way he's looked in his first 2 games has been unbelievable. His ability to control the game and completely transform a team offensively is matched by few in the country, if any. He's got a great skill set, high IQ, defensively he moves really well even though he's always at a size disadvantage. His shooting is his biggest swing factor. If he can hit jumpers more consistently, I think you've got a potential lottery pick. You know Josh Christopher by now. He's a big, physical, and streaky shooting 2 guard with high upside. He doesn't impact the game nearly as much as I'd like when his shot isn't falling, but the potential is quite obvious with him. Cam Thomas has been about a bucket, and that has not changed at LSU so far this season. He's got a lot of room to grow as a passer and on defense as well, but it's tough to ignore the guy who has been good for 25 a night right out the gate as a freshman. He suffered an ankle injury against Ole Miss, but prior to that he had just gotten to the line 27 times in 2 games and made 26 of them. The scoring potential and production is absolutely there, and he can move up further if he shows any flashes in other areas. Louisville's David Johnson is putting it together. He's a big guard with a nice all-around game, and he shot it surprisingly well so far this season. He brings a lot to the floor on both ends. Turning the ball over is still an issue for him from last year. I think he's another guy who's a near lock for that mid to later first round range at this point. Kai Jones is one of the more interesting prospects at the top of the draft. He's a terrific athlete with high upside on both ends of the floor. He's shooting nearly 44% from 3, though he's taken just 16 on the year. I like the energy he brings to the floor, and he finds a way to be productive even though he's often playing out of position. Fouling was a big issue early on in the season, but he's looked better as of late. He's in the mold of the modern big man, and someone who will likely be in the top 20. Tre Mann is another one of my favorites in this class. He's made great improvements from a year ago, especially physically, and has played himself into the upper class of guards. How he performs during the rest of SEC play is going to say a lot about him, but nonetheless I think he belongs here and he showed a lot of talent this year. The players are more solidified as we get higher into the top 15 and are likely going to stay in this general area throughout the year. I think we'll get a handful of guys who come and go, and the order will likely change, but for the most part, expect to see a lot of these names mentioned throughout the year. If a Bulldog played basketball, it would be Jaden Springer. He's a bully on the court on both ends and has been a key contributor to this Tennessee team in limited minutes. He's a talented playmaker, and I think he has more to give as a scorer than he's had to show on a team like this. At 14, we have Usman Garuba. Right now, I think Garuba is the best international prospect in the class. He's a really good defender at that 4-5 spot and consistently makes high IQ plays, especially as a passer. Greg Brown has already started to recognize some of that potential. He's still got to quit fouling, and the fact that he's recorded just 1 assist all season is concerning, but his abilities on both ends are evident. He's got way more potential as a scorer than I thought he did coming in, and barring a change in trajectory, I think he stays in the top half of the first round. He might even get into the top 10. At 13, we have Corey Kispert. Now while he doesn't have the upside as a lot of the other players in his general range, he's got a solidified skill set and a role that we know will translate to the league. He's putting up 21 a game on 60% from the field and 48% from 3. If you like offensive rating, his is 152. The highest in the NCAA since 2010 was 145.96 by Devontae Cacok. I have a few more questions about him defensively, but hopefully we'll learn more when they get to the tournament. Keon Johnson is one of, if not the best athlete in this draft. He's still raw and might even take a year in the league before he can contribute, but I'm a big fan of what he can do, especially defensively. He's got elite defensive potential, and as he continues to work on his shot and get more comfortable on the court, especially on the perimeter, I think you've got somebody who has a chance to be a real difference maker in the league. The hyperextended elbow has kept James Bouknight out recently, and it might affect his play for a while. I like what he brings as a scorer, he's a good athlete, and defensively I actually think he's pretty good minus some mental lapses. Hopefully Bouknight's injury doesn't affect his play for too long, because he is one of my favorites to watch, and someone who should stick around the lottery. A foot injury in COVID-19 has kept Duke's Jalen Johnson out for over a month, so I'm excited to see him play in the ACC. At a legit 6'9", 220, Johnson is a good athlete who can handle it, pass, and play good defense at times. I like his skill set at that 4 spot, and it should be interesting to see how he fits back in with Stewart and Hurt and makes his impact on games. In a vacuum, Johnson is somebody who should be in that top 5, top 7 conversation. Just when I thought Moses Moody might be coming back to earth after an underwhelming performance against Tennessee, he bounced right back against Georgia. I'm a fan of his skill set, and there isn't a team in the league who wouldn't want him from both an on-court and culture standpoint. Scotty Barnes is that do-it-all forward prospect that teams covet, especially after the success of Draymond Green. There's still much he's yet to prove, especially as a scorer and a shooter, but he's an effective playmaker, defender, and brings great energy on a nightly basis. Zaire Williams is another guy who has at times left more to be desired, and things seem to be headed in the right direction for him. He's got to do a better job of taking care of the ball, finishing at the rim, and just hitting shots. But there aren't too many players in the country with his skill set, or those that are capable of getting 12 points, 12 rebounds, 10 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks in the same game. Williams has one of the higher ceilings in the class. My top 5 prospects remain the same, though the order is slightly different at the top. Starting with number 5, we have Jalen Green. We'll get to see Green and the rest of this G League Ignite squad. Go up against real competition in the G League bubble. I'm interested to see how they perform in this setting and how their games have developed to this point. He's obviously intriguing at 6'5" with freak explosiveness and a knack for scoring the ball. At 4, we've got Green's Ignite teammate, Jonathan Kuminga. He's got a prototypical NBA body and athletic profile for a forward. It's not much else I can really say about him at this point that you guys haven't already heard. Soon enough, we'll get to see what he can do in a real professional setting. The top 3 is the current elite tier in this class. And at number 3, we have Jalen Suggs. He's been great all year and just someone who's fun to watch. I like what he brings to the team at either guard spot. He's an unselfish player and has one of the more complete games in the class. I talked about each of the top 3 players in much more detail in my new series, First Look, so if you want to check that out and get more info, I'd appreciate it. Moving on to number 2, we have Evan Mobley. I really do believe that Evan Mobley is going to make a run at that top pick. Y'all already know who number 1 is on the list, but the way Mobley can impact games in a variety of ways at 7 foot is special. Those questions about his mentality or assertiveness are likely still going to be there, but I think his all-around skill set is perfect for the modern NBA, and it'll firmly have him in that top 3 conversation for me. And at number 1, we have Cade Cunningham. Cunningham is still the number 1 player. Chances are you know Cunningham's game by now. He's a terrific passer, does a lot of things well, and when we're talking about prospects and potential, there's a ton to work with him. He's still number 1 in my eyes, but the gap isn't as wide as